What's up everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to replace the rear shocks on a 2009 Toyota Tacoma. This in particular one, I'm replacing it with Dirt Logic shocks. Those were the shocks that were on it before, has to do with the lift, goes with the 6-inch lift, but on any of the second gen Tacomas, this is the exact same process pretty much regardless of the shock you get, so doesn't really matter if it's got a lift or not. It's really just a couple bolts, super simple, so let's get started. Okay, so what sparked this project is, as you can see, one of these sides is not like the other. That side is looking good, but this side unfortunately does not look so good. I'm not exactly sure when or how that happened. Hasn't been like that for very long, but as soon as I noticed it, I wanted to get it replaced as quickly as possible. Definitely something you'll notice in terms of how the truck is riding, but clearly time to replace it, so that's what we're gonna do. I've got the replacement shock right here. I have a second replacement shock on this other side because when you replace one side, it's always best to replace the other. So got the secondary replacement right there. This shock is still connected as it should be, but we're gonna replace it anyway, just to make sure that everything is good going forward. Now I know by that logic, I should also be doing the front ones, but I had the front ones looked at, they're not leaking, everything is good. They seem solid, so I'm gonna leave those for now. But obviously if something comes up and one of those has an issue, I'll replace both of them. But today we're focusing on the back. Also, just for safety purposes, please make sure you track your front wheels. That way the truck doesn't move forward while you're working on it. Also, make sure you have jack stands underneath. Jacks are great, but they can fail. So throw it up on jack stands, make sure you stay safe, and the truck's not gonna drop and cause any additional damage. Okay, so on the back shocks, you've got basically two bolts. You have this top one right here, which is a 14 millimeter, and then you have the two that are down on the mounting piece right there. That rod is kind of covering the one side, but on the left-hand side, you can see that bolt. It's gonna be 17 millimeter. Just grab a socket and a wrench, put one on each side, and you should be able to crack it loose. So the top bolt is a 14 millimeter. So we're gonna take a 14 millimeter ratchet. Gonna crack that loose. Now, one thing to note is that when this top bolt is tight, and this is where a PB blaster is gonna come into play, if this is tight, then this whole shock might spin as you're trying to loosen it, but it does tee off at the top here, so you can grab some channel locks or vice grips or something, clamp it on. But if you hit it with the PB blaster and it's a situation similar to mine, I was able to just grab this side and hold it while I twisted the top, and it came loose. So pretty simple. And that whole shock's gonna drop off. So you've got basically a bushing on the top and the bottom. That's gonna be your old bushing. And make sure you replace the bushings while you're doing this because you might as well while you've got it taken apart. I'm gonna have to knock this one off, but you've got the base plate here, and then you have a bushing that goes onto that. And then it goes through where it mounts onto the truck. And you've got a second bushing that would go over the top there, and a secondary plate that goes over the top of the bushing, and then your bolt, which again is 14 millimeter. So that's how it all pieces together. Make sure the way you take it apart is the same way you put it back together, so everything works how it should. So like I said, I hit this with PB blaster beforehand, so this one actually just cracked loose. You can see this side's not even moving. So just back this bolt out. It's starting to move a little bit, so now I'm gonna grab that other wrench. Up on top, we've got the old ones on the right and the new ones on the left. You can see there's a bunch of oil and stuff leaking out of the ones on the right. The ones on the left are brand new. I also did a bit of a compression test just on this one that failed right here. And you can clearly tell, both by all the oil and everything that's been leaking out of it, as well as from the compression, that it's kind of lost its ability to be a shock. So even if this end piece was able to be screwed back on, which it kind of was able to be, I think the reason it backed out was because the shock was failing in general. So regardless of whether or not it was able to be repaired right there or not, it was time to replace them anyways. Before you mount any of these new ones back into place, you wanna make sure you charge them up. Basically, you're gonna do a full compression a couple times on each one of these shocks. I'll show you what that looks like before I mount it up, but let's start putting these ones back into place. All right, so first things first, charge it up. To help if I was a little bit heavier. One more. Come on, baby. That was a good one. That was a really good one. All right, I think it's ready. So, bottom mount first, top piece with plate and the bushing second. You can see up here we've got everything put into place. You've got the bolt on top, and you've got a plate, and you have a bushing on top of that. And then underneath, you've got another bushing and another plate, and then you have the shock. Down below, you just have the two bolts. This bottom section is gonna be torqued to 74, 75 foot-pounds of torque. This top one is only gonna be torqued to about 15 foot-pounds. If you have a torque wrench, I recommend using that. If you don't, and you work on your vehicles regularly, then you probably have a pretty decent idea for what 15 and 75 foot-pounds of torque feels like. But I obviously recommend using a torque wrench if you have it. If not, you can probably rent one from like AutoZone or something like that. Pretty simple fix overall, guys. I've got the driver's side tire back on. I'm gonna put the passenger side back on right now. Everything I used in the video, I will put in the video description down below. Although honestly, a lot of it's just gonna be kind of specific to your vehicle. But any of the tools or anything like that, I'll put in the video description down below. Thanks a ton for watching. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and let me know if you have any questions down in the comments down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you next time.